Story 1, The Night Road. Hello, everyone. It's been a while since we last had Japanese stories. I saw many of you asking for them in the comments, so here you go. This is a small collection of scary stories from Japanese forums. Most of them fall into the urban legend genre, though there are also classic creepypastas. Alright, let's begin. Get comfortable and enjoy. Happy watching and listening. I don't remember why exactly, but when I was very young, I lived with my grandmother in a small village in the southern part of Prefecture N. It was an extremely remote place. There was no real infrastructure, so even a simple grocery trip felt like a serious journey. That said, the nature around us was stunningly beautiful and peaceful. Endless rice fields and farms stretched as far as the eye could see. However, just a few kilometers away from my grandmother's house, there was a road where accidents happened disturbingly often. What made it even stranger was that the road was wide, well-maintained, and perfectly visible, and yet the accidents happened almost exclusively at night. Drivers who survived told the same story. They claimed they had seen 5 children standing hand in hand across the road, blocking the way. Trying not to hit them, drivers would sharply turn the steering wheel and crash off the road. Once, when I was a child, my grandmother told me an old legend connected to that place. I heard this story from my own grandmother, your great-great-grandmother. When she was young, a terrible mass murder of children happened on that road. Some bodies were found. Others were never discovered. I believe the vengeful spirits of those children still wander there, searching for their killer. I started trembling, and my mother, who was also listening, quickly interrupted. "Mom, stop it, you're scaring him." But my grandmother ignored her and continued. "Listen carefully. When you grow up and start driving, if you ever find yourself on that road at night and see children standing in the middle of it, never, do you hear me, never stop." That was the end of her story. For a while, I lived in constant fear because of that tale. But soon my parents and I moved to Osaka. The memories of village life slowly faded, and I got used to the city. Now I'm over 30. I'm married, and we have 2 children. When they grew older, they became interested in spending time outdoors, so during summer vacations I sometimes took them to visit my great-grandmother in that same village. Despite her age, she remained healthy and energetic, always happy to have her great-grandchildren stay overnight. One night, while driving late from Osaka through the village, I carefully scanned the dark road ahead. The familiar turns told me we were close. Then it happened. In the distance, I noticed dark human silhouettes. As I approached, they took the shape of children, about 4 or 5 years old, holding hands and blocking the road. "Honey, brake," my wife screamed. But before my foot reached the pedal, my grandmother's warning flashed through my mind. In a moment of panic, I pressed the gas pedal all the way down and drove straight through them. "What are you doing? Turn around." "Now," my wife screamed in horror. Reality snapped back. I looked in the rearview mirror, at the spot where I should have hit the children. As expected, there was nothing there. Our own children slept peacefully when we finally reached my grandmother's house. But my wife and I, frozen to the bone despite the warm, humid summer night, couldn't sleep at all after that surreal encounter. To this day, I pray that those children will one day find peace, and finally move on. Story 2, Nodagami-sama. This terrifying event happened during summer vacation when I was in 7th grade. Usually, our whole family visited relatives in the countryside, but that year I went only with my father. My mother stayed home to care for my older sister, who had been injured in a car accident. Back then, I was a difficult teenager, rebellious and distant. I barely greeted relatives and spent most of my days wandering around alone until dinner. Being around family made me uncomfortable, and my relationship with my father was strained. I had been coming to this village every summer since elementary school and knew the area well. Still, every time I arrived, I remembered one strict warning from the adults. Children must never go to Shrine A. The shrine was old, but I had never been there. When I asked my father why children weren't allowed, he always answered vaguely. Because only adults are permitted there. That unclear explanation only made me more curious, though I was still afraid to go alone. While I was thinking about it, Bunka, name changed, a neighbor and my childhood friend, approached me. "What are you up to?" she asked. I admitted I was thinking about visiting the shrine. Bunka immediately suggested gathering other village kids to make it our own little horror adventure. Of course, I agreed. At 11 p.m., while my father and relatives were drinking inside, I quietly slipped out. Bunka was already waiting with Chihiro, Daigo, and Erika, names changed. They were excited, talking over each other about finally seeing the shrine. We knew it was in the mountains, about a 20-minute walk from the village. Adults always said we were too young to go there, but after many summers here, we had a rough idea of the direction. We made a pact. Just take a quick look, then go straight home. As we walked through the dark forest, my heart pounded with a mix of fear and excitement. Still, I wasn't truly scared. I believed adults only forbade the place because the mountains were dangerous. After all, what kind of ghost would appear in front of a whole group? Then we reached it. The old, rotting gate stood alone among the trees. The moment I saw it, regret hit me hard. I wanted to turn back, but Bunka and the others had already stepped inside. The shrine itself was tiny. The altar stood only a meter or two from the gate. "That's it?" Bunka said, disappointed. "Not scary at all," Chihiro added. "Let's go home," Daigo said. "Yeah, before our parents find out," Erika agreed. I stepped forward to leave, but then Chihiro opened the small altar doors. The moment he looked inside, something went terribly wrong. He let out a sharp cry, collapsed to the ground, and began acting as if overwhelmed by something invisible. Erika screamed and ran, pulling Daigo with her. Bunka and I froze in terror, watching Chihiro struggle. We knew we had to stop him before he hurt himself. We tried to restrain him, but his strength was far beyond what we expected. Then we heard many footsteps approaching from the village. Mr. Fukuda, Erika and Daigo's grandfather, rushed in. He took one look at Chihiro and the open altar, then shouted, "Nodagami-sama." He grabbed Daigo and ordered him to run for the village elder. "Everyone else, go home. The old woman will know what to do." Terrified but obedient, I did exactly as he said. At home, my father scolded me harshly, but seeing how shaken I was, he eventually calmed down and began to explain. "Listen," my father said. "Nodagami-sama may have bitten Chihiro, but the old woman should already be with him now. Everything will be fine. Do you understand?" He paused, then sighed. "In the end, this is partly my fault too. I never properly explained why children are forbidden from going near that shrine. When I asked who Nodagami-sama was, my father finally told me the legend. The name Nodagami is written with characters that mean, the one who bites the throat or the side of the neck. Long ago, in this village, a mother and her young son died of starvation. The villagers ostracized them, abandoning them to die. Before his death, the boy cursed the village, swearing that he would bite the throats of their children so they could never eat again, so they would feel the same agony he and his mother had endured. From that day on, children in the village began harming themselves, one after another, until they collapsed and died. This terrible phenomenon continued until a wandering exorcist arrived and sealed the vengeful spirit of the boy inside the altar of Shrine once and for all. The old woman who was treating Chihiro that night is a descendant of that exorcist. Even now, she alone possesses the power to restrain the spirit. The next morning, my father and I left the village. Our stay was cut short, not as punishment, but for my safety. That didn't stop me from staying in touch with Bunka and the others after that nightmare. Chihiro fully recovered. There were no marks or scars left on his neck. Today, I'm an adult, but I still refuse to go anywhere near that shrine. Even after all these years, the terror I experienced that night remains vivid in my memory. Story 3, The Face. This happened when I was in middle school and stayed overnight at a friend's house. I'd been there many times before. The house was fairly new, well designed, and there was nothing frightening about it, except for one thing. If you walked a little farther down the road next to the house, right up against the mountain slope, you'd find a cemetery filled with old stone statues. During the day it didn't feel unsettling, but whenever we went outside at night to set off fireworks, I always glanced toward the cemetery with unease. I constantly felt like something was watching me from the darkness. One evening after dinner, 3 of us decided to play video games. One friend was connecting the console, while the girl who lived there went to the bathroom. I was too lazy to help with the cables, so instead I decided to secretly take a photo of my friend using a disposable camera. There were only 3 shots left on the roll, and I wanted to use them that night. I pressed the shutter, the flash went off. The photo captured my friend's back just as he was about to turn around. One important detail: the television was completely turned off at the time. My friend got annoyed by the sudden flash, but quickly laughed it off. When the girl returned, the 3 of us started playing. The rest of the evening passed normally. A few days later, I had the film developed. Back home, I was flipping through the photos in my room, feeling nostalgic, until one picture made my blood run cold. It was that same photo of my friend's back. But on the black screen of the turned-off television, a greenish male face was clearly visible. The glowing face had eyes and a nose, but below the nose, there was nothing. Just emptiness. Its gaze wasn't directed at my friend. It was staring straight at me. The moment our eyes met, I screamed and ran crying to my parents. It was the first ghost photograph of my life. My parents were just as terrified when they saw the photo and told me to get rid of it immediately. I didn't argue. To be safe, I showed the picture to the friends who had been there that night. They confirmed it, no one else had been in the room, and the TV had definitely been off. We all sat trembling in class. Our homeroom teacher came over after hearing the noise, but the moment she saw the photo, she cried out in fear as well. We decided to take the cursed photograph to a Buddhist temple for purification. But on the day we planned to go, the photo mysteriously vanished from the stack in my desk drawer. I never found it again. The next day, I fell ill and missed school. It was likely shock from the whole ordeal. Later, my friend's grandmother explained something to me. The television we were playing on was positioned directly facing the cemetery. And according to local belief, an invisible path runs above that spot, a road used by the souls of the dead as they travel from their graves to the afterlife. Even now, the image of that glowing green face is burned into my memory. Story 4, The Training Camp, Beginning. In middle school, I was part of the tennis club. Every summer vacation, we went to a training camp in the mountains to strengthen team bonds. I attended for 3 years in a row. It was a great way to get to know everyone, almost like an exchange trip. This incident happened during my second year, when I was in 8th grade. That year, the coaches gave us a free day. We were allowed to do whatever we wanted, as long as we followed camp rules and respected curfew. During the day, many students went to the nearest town to buy souvenirs. After nightfall, we gathered to share stories. Older students talked about going to the river. Younger ones mentioned an amusement park. Everyone had visited typical places, except for one friend. For reasons I still don't understand, he said. Somehow, I ended up at a cemetery. I wondered why anyone would go there. A strange, heavy atmosphere settled over us. It wasn't just the place, it was the way he spoke. He stared into empty space with glassy eyes, his expression completely blank. "Hey, was he always like this?" one of the older students whispered to me. I could only shrug. I was just as confused. That night, after the older students fell asleep, the strange feeling didn't fade. It was already midnight. The teachers had finished their rounds and gone to their rooms, but I couldn't sleep. The story about the cemetery wouldn't leave my mind. My friend, who had been sleeping in the bed next to mine, suddenly stood up. His movements were leaden, his feet dragging across the floor as he slowly exited the room. At first, I thought nothing of it, assuming he was just heading to the restroom. But after 15 minutes passed without his return, a cold knot of unease began to form in my stomach. I went out to look for him. It felt like an eternity spent combing through the dark campgrounds. Finally, I found him on the terrace balcony of one of the main buildings. He had already climbed over the metal railing and was suspended precariously over the drop, his arms stretched far out into the empty air. It looked as though someone was pulling him from the other side, or perhaps he was desperately trying to grasp something invisible in the void. It had crossed the line from strange to truly horrific. My greatest fear was that he would simply let go and plummet. Gathering every ounce of my will, I forced my voice to work and called out his name. He was only a step away from the fall. "Oh, is that you? How's it going?" he replied. His voice was casual, perfectly mundane, as if we had just bumped into each other on the street. He didn't even flinch. When I asked what he was doing, he couldn't offer a single reason for climbing over the railing. In fact, he remembered nothing from the moment he left his bed until I spoke his name. We tried to laugh it off as sleepwalking to keep the dread at bay. The rest of the trip passed without incident, but a weight remained on my soul. When I returned home and told my father about it, the fear came rushing back. "Wait," my father asked, his face turning pale. "That camp, was it near the old cemetery?" I told him it was. "I know that place," he whispered. "It's one of the most notorious, cursed zones in Japan. I can't believe they let you camp out there." The cemetery my father described matched the location perfectly. He told me the land used to be a forest infamous for suicides, and reports of malevolent spirits have persisted there for decades. It isn't common knowledge, but among those who study the occult, it's known as a place of frantic, restless activity. The thought of those spirits, combined with my friend's vacant expression on that balcony, led me to a sickening realization. Perhaps he wasn't sleepwalking at all. Perhaps, for those few minutes, he was entirely hollow, possessed by a spirit that wanted him to join them in the dark. I wish I could forget that night. But even now, I feel a lingering, otherworldly chill, as if that cemetery is still watching, patiently making plans to call for me next. Story 5, I Can't Get Out. This story is said to have happened to a young man named Keita back when he was a student. One afternoon, he and his girlfriend visited a shopping mall, a small, 4-story, run-down place in the middle of the countryside. Since it was a weekday, the aisles were nearly deserted. After a quick bite to eat, they wandered aimlessly until they hit a CD shop. Keita put on some headphones at a listening station, losing himself in the music, while his girlfriend browsed the racks. After a while, she tapped him on the shoulder. "I think I left my bags somewhere. I'm going to go look for them." "Sure," Keita nodded, slipping the headphones back on. Time passed. Eventually, Keita finished his music and pulled out his phone to check on her. He saw a message, "Can't find them. Maybe I left them on the 4th floor. Going to check." Keita was confused. The 4th floor was mostly an arcade, and they hadn't even been up there that day. He texted back, "We weren't even on the 4th. No reply. Feeling uneasy, he headed to the 4th floor himself. It was empty and silent. He searched the entire level, but she was nowhere to be found. He texted again, "Where are you?" A reply came almost instantly, "I can't get out." Keita stared at the screen. Was she joking? "I'm literally on the 4th floor right now," he wrote. Another message, "I can't get out. Help me." Panic set in. He worried someone was harassing her. He sprinted through the arcade, checking behind every machine and even ducking into the restrooms. Nothing. He called her, but she didn't pick up. He ran down to the third floor, asking shopkeepers if they'd seen a girl in her outfit. No one had. He was about to head to the second floor when he saw her. She was on the escalator, ascending from the third floor back to the fourth. Thank God, he thought, but then he froze. Something was wrong. Her arms were raised high above her head, flailing frantically in the air, a strange, rhythmic movement, like someone drowning and struggling to stay afloat. Keita dashed toward the escalator. By the time he reached the steps, she had reached the top. He sprinted up after her, but when he stepped onto the fourth floor landing, the hallway was vacant. He asked the few people there, but no one had seen a girl come up. Desperate, he checked his phone. A new message, "I can't get out." He ran back down to the third floor, searching wildly, only to see the same sight again, her, on the escalator, rising toward the fourth floor while drowning in the air. He chased her again. And again, the fourth floor was empty. Then, a melody began to play over the speakers, "The Light of the Fireflies." In Japan, this is the song played to signal a store is closing. Keita went cold. They had arrived at the mall at 2 p.m. He looked at his watch. It was 9 p.m. 7 hours had vanished in what felt like minutes. His girlfriend's phone was now switched off. A security guard approached him, looking suspicious. "She probably just went home," the guard said curtly, ushering him out. Keita drove to her house, but it was dark. No one answered. He thought about the police, but the guard's judgmental eyes flashed in his mind, they would think he was crazy. He went home, heart hammering. The next morning, he raced back to her house. Silence. He drove back to the mall and went straight to the fourth floor. It was a normal morning. He searched every corner, then descended to the third. He turned toward the escalator and his heart stopped. There she was. She was rising toward the fourth floor, her arms thrashing in that same agonizing, suffocating motion. And in that exact moment, the mall speakers began to play "The Light of the Fireflies," even though it was only morning. Terror finally broke him. Keita fled the mall and never looked back. When he reached his car, he checked his phone one last time. A final message sat on the screen. "I can't get out." Terrified, Keita switched off his phone, desperate to escape the nightmare. A week passed. He managed to gather enough courage to try and find closure. He returned to the girl's house and rang the doorbell. This time, her father answered. Keita remembered him as a cheerful, vibrant man, but the voice that crackled through the intercom was hollow and irritable. "It's Keita," the young man said. "Has she come back home?" "I don't have time for this," the father muttered. It was chilling. He had once adored his only daughter, yet now he spoke of her with a strange, cold detachment. "Listen," the father whispered suddenly. "Do you have any money? How much do you have on you right now?" Keita was stunned. "What? I'll give the girl to you. Just throw whatever cash you have into the mailbox." "What are you talking about?" "I told you, I'm busy. The girl is yours, just leave the money." The intercom clicked off. As if under a trance, Keita drove back to the mall. The fourth floor was a tomb. He walked down the stairs to the third floor and looked toward the escalator. She was there. But this time, the drowning had stopped. She was draped face down over the moving handrail, her body limp, her arms hanging like dead weight. Her neck was twisted at an impossible angle so that her face looked directly back at him. With one hand, she began to beckon him, a slow, rhythmic gesture to come closer. Keita screamed and ran. He didn't stop until he reached his house. His phone vibrated in his pocket. A message, "I can't get out." In a fit of blind panic, he ran to the river and hurled the phone into the water. That same day, he canceled his mobile contract. He never went near that mall again. Years passed. Keita built a new life. He married, found a good job, and eventually, he and his wife were expecting their first child. When the day came, he was there in the delivery room, holding his wife's hand. Everything was going according to plan. "Push," the doctor commanded. "You can do it, honey," Keita encouraged. He saw the head. He took a breath of relief. Finally. But then, the clock kept ticking. The child did not emerge. The atmosphere in the room shifted. Doctors exchanged frantic looks, nurses moved with a sudden, jagged urgency. Keita pulled a nurse aside. "What's wrong?" "The baby won't come out," she whispered. "Is it stuck?" "No, it's not exactly stuck. We're doing everything we can." Keita was ushered into the hallway. He heard his wife's guttural screams, "Get him out. Get him out of me." Then, a heavy, suffocating silence. The doctor emerged, looking shattered. "I'm so sorry." "The child." Keita burst into the room. His wife was sobbing hysterically. The baby was dead. Its head had emerged, but the rest of the body remained inside. Later, the doctor would whisper, it was as if something with incredible strength, was pulling him back in from the inside. As Keita stood in the hospital corridor, crushed by grief, he reached for his phone to call his parents. On the screen was a single unread message. The sender's address was a strange string of characters, his name, his birthdate, and the name and birthdate of the girl from the mall. It was her old email address. The message contained only 4 words, "I can't get out." Keita's wife survived, but her mind was gone. After years of revolving doors at psychiatric clinics, she took her own life. While clearing out her things, Keita found her hospital notebook. He flipped through the blank pages until he reached the very last one. There, in tiny, trembling script, was written a single phrase, "I can't get out." Story 6, number 136. This happened to my younger brother many years ago. We were close in age and shared a small room in our parents' house. We fought constantly, as brothers do, but there was an unspoken bond between us, a silent pact that we would always have each other's backs. My brother was a university student at the time. One night, he came home very late after drinking with friends. I was already asleep, but I woke up when he stumbled in. I closed my eyes again, only to be jolted awake by a persistent, buzzing vibration. It wasn't my phone. It was his. But my brother was passed out cold, oblivious to the world. "Hey, answer your phone," I barked, shaking him. "It's driving me crazy." He groaned, fumbled for the device, and glanced at the screen. Suddenly, he sat bolt upright, the alcohol seemingly vanishing from his system. 136. What the hell? "Brother, look at this." He shoved the phone under my nose. The caller ID simply read, 136. "Does a number like that even exist?" he muttered. "I don't know, just answer it so it stops buzzing." The phone had been vibrating for an unnaturally long time. He pressed it to his ear. "Hello? No. Why are you telling me this? Wait a minute." He grabbed a scrap of paper and started scribbling. "Yes, I understand." He hung up, looking pale. "Who was it?" I asked. "I don't know," he said, staring at the paper. "They gave me an address. They said there's a dead person there and told me I had to go. I told them I wasn't the police, but they just kept talking." We went back to sleep, confused and unsettled. In the morning, the note was still on the desk. It hadn't been a dream. I checked his phone's call history, but there was no record of a call from 136. I did some research. It turns out that in Japan, 136 is a legitimate service for landlines. It tells you the number of the last person who called you. But there was a catch: you cannot receive a call from 136. It is a service number you have to dial yourself. Then, I looked up the address from the note. According to the maps, it was a house standing completely alone in the wilderness, miles away from any other sign of life. With no other information to be found, the mystery only grew darker. "It's not that far away," my brother declared, his curiosity clearly winning out. "I'll head out there with a few friends and check it out." "Go ahead then," I muttered, having no idea of the nightmare we were about to invite in. Later that evening, a message flashed on my phone: "Brother, it's bad. I'm at the police station." Since our parents weren't home yet, I was the one who had to go. I found my brother and two of his friends looking shaken. They had gone to the address from that strange note and found an abandoned house. Just as the voice on the phone had whispered, they discovered human remains inside. They had called the police immediately. I wanted to tell the officers the truth about the midnight call from 136, but I bit my tongue. Telling the police a ghost called to report a body would make us look like lunatics or, worse, suspects. We agreed to stick to a simpler story. They were out, ghost hunting, at famous haunted spots and stumbled upon the house by accident. The body turned out to be a woman who had hanged herself. She had been hanging there for many years, forgotten by the world. We were allowed to go home, but from that day on, something shifted in my brother. It started small. "Did you see that?" he'd ask while we were watching TV. "Did something just flicker?" We even recorded the shows to check, but the footage was always clean. Yet he insisted, "I see it. A shadow. A woman's shadow." Soon, he began seeing her in the real world, not just on screens. My parents finally realized it was serious when he stopped bathing. He was terrified to look into mirrors because she was always there, standing behind him. In desperation, we sought out specialists. 3 women, mediums, came to our house. They spent hours chanting sutras and performing rituals, but their final verdict was devastating. "The ritual is over," one said, "but we have failed. The spirit clinging to him wants something intensely, but she will not speak. Until her wish is granted, she will not rest." I was in despair. I went back to the police station, begging for any detail about the woman in the house. Eventually, they gave in. There wasn't much. She had died of strangulation by hanging, and since all her relatives were dead, no one had claimed her. I decided on one last desperate act. I traveled to that abandoned house alone. I bought flowers and incense. Standing in that decaying room, I lit the incense and prayed with everything I had: "Please, find peace. Please, go to heaven. Leave him alone." And then, out of the hollow silence, a woman's voice whispered, "Thank you." I have never felt a horror like I did in that second. I tried to scream, but only a raspy hiss came out as I bolted from the house. Strangely, my brother began to recover almost instantly. The shadow vanished. Today, he's back to his old cheerful self, sometimes so cheerful he's actually annoying. I suspect that woman just wanted to be found, to be acknowledged as a human being after years of hanging in oblivion. Why did she choose him? Maybe it's beyond human understanding. He only remembers visiting that district once for a university seminar. Perhaps that was the moment she noticed him. Well, that's it, folks. Those are the stories for today. What did you think? Did you enjoy them, or were they a bit too much? Let me know in the comments. Looking back at these 6 stories, excluding the 5th one, which I'll talk about later, they really hit that true scary stories vibe. That's actually the category on the forum where I found them, real horror/urban legends. They're written to sound like first-hand experiences. While they're likely clever literary fiction based on folklore, they feel grounded. Take the first story, for example, The Legend of the Kids Killed on the Road. The rule is, if you see them, you crash. I have to admit, when I first read it, I couldn't help but smirk at one part. Imagine being the wife in that car. You see children standing in the road, holding hands, and you scream at your husband to brake. Stop the car. And instead of hitting the brakes, the guy just gets this grim look on his face and floors the accelerator. I know, it's dark. It's a tragic, horrifying situation, but there's something so absurd and bleak about it that it's almost funny in a twisted way. If you smiled at that part too, let me know so I don't feel like the only one with a warped sense of humor. But overall, these stories are exactly what I love about the genre. These stories really remind me of the vibe of my old videos, back when I was scouring Reddit for real-life paranormal encounters. Of course, most of these situations probably have logical explanations, but for people who believe in the supernatural, they attribute these creepy little details to their experiences. As I've said many times in my videos, I'm a skeptic. I'm about as skeptical as a person can get when it comes to the paranormal. But honestly, if you push that aside, dive into the story, and try to live the experience through the author's eyes. I love it. I love all this demonology stuff. I don't believe in it for a second, but I love it nonetheless. I hope you guys feel the same way, or maybe you don't. Let me know in the comments, I'd love to read your take. Now, about that fifth story. Honestly, it was cool, but the logic felt a bit fuzzy to me. At first, I thought maybe the mall was some kind of mystical, liminal space, but other people weren't disappearing, so that's not it. Maybe it was the escalator? I don't know. It seems the glitch was the girl herself. She vanished, and no one saw her again. And then there's the father, who apparently knows she exists but is willing to trade her for cash. That was wild. And why did the same thing happen with the baby later? Was she trying to reincarnate? Like, when she vanished in the mall, her soul skipped forward into the body of his future child, and she was still trying to get out, but couldn't? It's all very confusing, but incredibly interesting. It's definitely enough to give you the creeps if you're listening at night. I've mentioned before that the Japanese find very specific, subtle things terrifying. This story was actually ranked in the top best on the forum where I found it. To each their own, I guess. Personally, I wouldn't put it at the very top. It's a solid, weird creepypasta, unexplained and unanswered. The others felt punchier. The first four were from the real scary stories/urban legends category. They're written to feel like actual experiences, or slashed with urban legends, you know, the kind of thing where your great-grandmother told you that if you take this specific turn at night, things happen because a spirit died of hunger there years ago. These legends are passed down through generations just so you don't end up, well, messing your pants when something weird happens. I loved those first four. And the sixth story was great too, just a bit longer. It's still a mystery why that 136 number called him, a service number you literally can't receive calls from. It's like the ghost woman reached through the phone system from the other side. Also, I realized halfway through that the narrator was the older brother, not the younger one, because he had to go to the station as a legal guardian for his 18-year-old brother. My bad. I already set the voices, lower for the younger, higher for the older, but hey, that happens in real life too, so let's just roll with it. And that's all for today. A little conversational pepcast for you. It's a fun format. Maybe I'll do more of these podcast-style segments on the channel. Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm asking you one more time because I really do read them. And if you liked the video, hit the like button and subscribe. It's such a small thing, but it helps me immensely to keep working and see that payback from you guys. Wait, that sounded wrong. I mean, it helps me give back to you with more content. It's a fair trade. You give me a like, a sub, and a comment, and I give you new videos. Everyone wins. So, for now, I'll say goodbye. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks again for watching. Peace out, everyone.